Good morning. Well, is it good morning? Or are you telling me good morning? So, I was hanging out with a friend in Germany talking about this idea I had about why, and the title should be Ransomware. And this is what happens when you work on your slides until the last minute. That should be ransomware. I'm not going to go in and change it now. Ransomware and why it should be decriminalized. And then the idea is like, well, why is it that this should be classified as being a crime? Because we already have crimes that deal with every consequence of this action of using ransomware. And we all know that hackers have a lot of nasty things and tools in their resources, and they can turn our home computer into a bomb. And we've been driving this idea about the bad hackers are doing things, and there's also been plots here in this country about bombs in Parliament, as I learned last weekend when you had a big celebration and I got to see a bonfire, so I thought that was pretty cool. But the thing that really began to disturb me about this was you start to see things like this. The life cycle of ransomware attack. Now, there's a reference here in the slide. I kind of put it down there. It was from Experian. And with their idea about, you get attacked, you discover that you've been attacked. And then there's this thing called negotiation. And negotiation and settlement legitimize the act of ransomware. Because does a business negotiate with somebody who comes to rob them, they're robbers, or anything else? If somebody vandalizes your business, are you going to negotiate with them? Back in my country, we had mafia, and they would ask for protection money. Isn't this pretty much the same type of thing? But is it actually this act of ransomware? I think the decriminalization of it is being caused by businesses making this legitimate. We've all got tools that hackers can use to, blast us from orbit. And in this process of discovery of the hacker gets in and performs a ransomware attack. And then business. Okay. I'll try not to talk as loud next time. It's
not this room, it's the next row.
Oh,
yeah.
I fed back into that. right into critical. All right, so where were we? Oh, we've got ransomware. But, we're off to the rescue. There's a magic pill that can solve all of our problems and get us our computer back. Because, we have this idea of negotiation. Now, I've been to a car group before, and, my idea behind negotiation is somebody in the negotiation is trying to get an advantage over the other person. It's the reason you negotiate. And, and the government maybe can't be much more help in that. And we had a president, Ronald Reagan, a while back, and he said that, there are 9 terrifying words in the English language when strung together. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. And then I noticed this in the news about ransomware. So you've got an agency here called the GCHQ, and this fellow here was quoted as saying, I think the reason ransomware is proliferating, we've seen twice as many attacks this year as last year in the UK. I think I got this quote from last week when I was researching cool slides for the presentation. And I think it's getting bigger, he says, because it works. It just pays. Criminals are making very good money from it and are often feeling that it's largely uncontested. So once we get this ransomware We go, we pay the fee and unlock the computers, and don't talk about the root cause of what is causing this phenomenon, and that is, well, nobody in this room who's able to wake up at 9:30 in the morning like me to come to a conference to learn how to do better would fall to victim, or anybody had a ransomware on their network? Who's going to raise their hand in the middle of an audience and say, well, yeah, I had a ransomware. But, feeding on to what they were saying, I found another headline. And, this firm is saying, I'd counsel a client to take a deduction for it. So not only are we going to pay the ransomware provider, this is a service that they're providing, we can deduct this. It's an ordinary and necessary business expense. So this idea that the businessman is going to legitimize the act of ransomware because it's going to be a business expense, then why should it be illegal to do? It's a business expense. It's like going out and having dinner and drinks. You write it off on your taxes. It's all part of your fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the company. And, being a director in the UK means your first loyalty must be to the interest of the company you serve. And people in business are saying, it's a business decision to pay the ransomware. So it's not a criminal act. We're not calling the police. We're making a business decision. And then, I've been, where I work, we write white papers on how should you do things and secure things, and this always comes up as the language that people want to put in is like, it's a business decision. And I think this idea that it's a business decision is the crux of my argument that if it's a part of business, then why is it that only criminals can benefit from providing this business service, as would be security professionals? We could all possibly just bring up to a business that they're susceptible to ransomware, and we could possibly come in and fix this, and then they could pay us instead of a criminal. Because, your country has this idea about really good ways of describing phishing attacks, where, the malware or the ransomware is going to come in more than likely through some kind of email. Because, this same study, and I've got this cited, where they looked at these phishing campaigns where it funneled down from 1,800. Just takes one user to go in, click on the thing, and then you've got the malware. I thought this was a funny graphic because at the end, they bring this big funnel down. We're going down from 1,800 to 50 to 14, down to, one person clicked it, but we caught it. It didn't actually cause anything because, in official documents, you can't really have anything sexy happen. I think of it more like this. There's a flow chart involved. Something's happened to your computer. And then you just sit there and you go through and think, well, is the computer still operating? Well, you're the IT staff. If you don't have IT staff, you reboot. If you have IT staff, you let them worry about it. And then go back to work. But if you don't have IT staff, well, do you have a budget to fix the PC? If not, you need to reinstall Windows, and you go back to work. It's kind of like what could happen when something goes wrong. But when you get ransomware, it's bothersome. And then when you get down to, so got Bitcoin? Because now your solution is going to require Bitcoin. And you can get rid of this malware. And then the hacker gets paid. And I happened to run into a hacker while I was doing research for this, and I got a quote from them. And they said, I think because it works and it just pays, I'm making very good money from it. Good thing it's illegal, else I'd have to charge VAT. And, hackers are making good money at this. So there's a list of kind of references, and I don't know if anybody's had any coffee. Does anybody disagree with me? Is anybody afraid to disagree with me because they don't want to talk to me?
I disagree. I think.
You got mine.
No, that's right. If we get illegal, then or decriminalize it, then the ransom to the squad, and then become more and more of the head and half the pay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a service, and if people are doing it in a legitimate fashion, charging less to get it fixed, then it would become a more economical way. The ransomware costs are going down.
Insurance, because people taking up ransomware insurance, the ransom seems to be going up.
Oh, yeah. So he said, I'm going to paraphrase what you said to suit the needs of my talk, but you brought up insurance and said that the cost of ransomware is going up because of insurance. And thank you for mentioning that, because that just further strengthens my cause. This is a legitimate thing. If you get insurance for it, is it necessarily illegal? It's just something that happens to your business, and it's a cost of doing business. You can get, I got travel insurance. If I catch COVID while I'm in the UK, I can go and they pay for the quarantine. I mean, you get insurance for many things. Insurance doesn't necessarily do anything but, like you said, drives the price up. So the criminals make more. But if we could legitimately approach this as a responsible disclosure, where you can approach a business and say, your security is lax and you're going to get hit with a ransomware. And then the business owner, what's the business owner going to say? Well, no, it hasn't happened yet. And then you can just take your laptop out and go, well, look what you can do. You have a security vulnerability here. You need to address this. And then if we address this in the law and said, you shouldn't operate a network on the internet that is susceptible to this. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. I mean, going back to, this tool has been out for decades. And, everybody always talks about attack chains that these hackers have and how sophisticated these attacks might be. And, this idea about this secretive society where, what if every country has ninjas, but the Japanese are just rubbish at it, right? I mean, it's not this. It's not, you don't need to have skills to write code to do this. This is stuff that is just commonly available, downloaded. And people are stupid enough to click through big warning signs like this to get this ransomware and malware. The biggest problem we have are the users. And because we legitimize their behavior, provide them a safety net of insurance, and, we'll just pay the ransomware and we'll write it off on our taxes. Because the tools and malware are, there's really been a formalism to describe malware and what it is. And, it's become a part of the art of computer security to understand what malware is. And, Israel Radai, I should have practiced his name before I got to this slide, coined the term here on July 4th, and there was the PC World magazine where it came from, came up with a better idea, practical definition of malware. Digital actions with the intent of gaining political, financial, or personal advantage. Now, one of the big things I am against paying the ransomware at all. I think it's the stupidest thing that you can do because it's not this hooded hacker making the money. It's terrorists. We're funding terrorist organizations where you don't know where this money is going. And then because they're getting paid, they'll just keep doing it. And I think the idea that just paying the ransomware and not and not having a good system that can be resilient from this is a breach of fiduciary duty. It shows incompetence in the management of your business, that you would rather just pay malware than hire an IT person. How many of these have understaffed IT people? Are just not viewed. IT is not viewed as a service to the company. It's viewed as a cost center. So if it's cheaper to pay the ransomware than hire somebody to keep you from getting ransomware, what is a business going to do? They're just going to pay. And then we fall into this trap because the tools that are being used it's really easy. You can take a lot of training. I mean, these are slides I pulled from malware training that I do myself. You can learn how easy it is to do these things. There are. Why did I leave this slide in here? I meant to delete that one. Sorry about that. We can get our indicators of compromise and we can share, well, here, look, this is what's happening now. We're going to all band together and one person gets hit, then we can all fix everything else. And then the U.S. CERT came up with a document of mitigations. And while it's very easy to put ransomware on an unprotected computer system or one that's not really properly secured, the mitigations are all the same. And the reason we don't do them is it's boring. I mean, these reports are boring. They all go through, and it's a list of things that I messed up my slides here. The technical description from the U.S. CERT about, malware droppers and how these things are done, the techniques that are being used at the state of the art have become portable. The attacker doesn't necessarily have to concern himself whether or not it's hardware or software they're exploiting. They have come up with a formalism to, once they've gotten in, it's fairly predictable what is going to happen, and you get the ransomware screen. It's a very formalized process, and we have antivirus. Oh, the threat was blocked. And then this is an indicator of compromise, and well, the idea being that, well, is this somewhere else on my computer network? But again, this is another tool that I could easily run as a system administrator to find weird things in my network and track them down before they become big. And then, all of the things and techniques that ransomware users, they're easily found ways that, or obfuscation techniques that ransomware people use to make money. These are all, there's a discipline involved in this. They're professionals. And, perhaps what they do should be legitimized. Because, we have tools to detect these things, we just don't bother using them. And, what's antivirus supposed to be doing anyway? Why is this not working? We've been using antivirus for decades now, and it's still, ineffective. Oh, and back to the report. So these are the mitigations that we always talk to. They're, mundane and boring things where we're going to keep our software up to date, right? Everybody keeps their software up to date. We're kind of required to do it, aren't we? We're not given the choice anymore. Our software automatically updates itself, so we should always be safe from this ransomware. We all restrict our users' ability to install their own software, don't we? Enforcing strong passwords. We make our users change their passwords regularly. Exercise caution when opening email attachments. I mean, I'm sure that where you work, everybody exercises caution when they open the email attachment. Yeah, sure. I mean, this is boring stuff, right? We're all doing this. Enable a personal firewall. Maybe that'll help horizontal attacks. Disable unnecessary services. Scan and remove suspicious email attachments. These are all things that we would do. What this is these are things you should be doing in your business. If you do these things, you won't get ransomware. So the fact that if you don't do these things, you're inviting the ransomware. And then it gets legitimized when you pay for it and write it off on your taxes. I hope so, because I think that I'm running out of slides and I have plenty of time.
I understand. We should be doing this, and we don't. But let's compare this digital crime to physical one, and then there's like default, which means they still have it. They still get paid. Someone gets kidnapped. Some person, poor person, would pay to get that up back. Does that mean it should digitize as well? It kind of, I'm just drawing parallels.
Yeah. Well,
this is proposition that you should decriminalize all ransomware, or the implementation of ransomware by the security sector for our hands. So the organizations can do their security function. Is it that all ransomware should be decriminalized, or just the stuff that's being targeted people improve in order to help organizations get better?
okay, so it's okay. So the first comment was about kidnappers. Well, what? Kidnapping is a crime. If you kidnap somebody and ask for money, and then sometimes people pay the money and you get the person back, certainly there was a crime committed there. And then as the second commenter brought up, I can go to a business and say, this is susceptible to ransomware. And then I would like to see it become a legitimate act to do this, because it would be an opportunity for somebody to earn a living to secure businesses. Right, and I anticipated this kind of argument because it comes down to intent. The act of actually doing the ransomware, there are already crimes that cover this. If you put ransomware on a computer, you're performing a denial of service attack against the business. That's already illegal. So if I use low orbit, if I give you a DOS, it's illegal because I'm putting you out of service. There's already a law that covers this. If somebody gets hurt as a result of ransomware, we have assault, we have murder, we have laws that cover the physical actions or the manifestations of this ransomware. The actual ransomware itself is a trigger for these crimes that we already have well defined, like kidnapping.
So I think the question is, say not to pay ransomware. Just in September of this year, a hospital in Alabama followed your advice and didn't pay ransomware, and a 6-month-old baby died because they couldn't access their EKG machine. So they were going to resort to backups, put their systems down. If that was my baby, I would much rather them pay the ransomware. Arco with a whole floor at a hospital, with all their systems down, ransomware. I guess the question is, have you ever been in a situation where you have been asked to pay ransomware to resolve the business? We've seen this quite a bit in the U.S. lately with the Colonial Pipeline and gas shut down for a week on the East Coast. Hospitals are getting it. So it's easy to say, don't pay ransomware when you're not directly involved, but when your business is out of operation or your hospital is shut down, I think it's a little disingenuous to not do everything you can to keep your business back up as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate argument, but if you use that as your security posture, I think that should be criminal.
Well, I think your other assumption is that all of these attacks are super targeted. All of the research on ransomware groups show that they just spray and spray and have less than the 0.02% success rate, right? They just send emails to a billion people and hope one of them clicks. That's how that works.
Yeah, well, I've got my idea about email is we should just get rid of it. There's no reason for email. Who here likes email and would like to see it stay around? We don't need email anymore. Email is a hassle. And it causes more harm than it does good.
You don't think in the year of COVID email's been very successful?
No, I stopped reading email during COVID. I mean, I have 21,000 emails to read, and I'm never going to read them. I mean, what happens? My philosophy about emails, I don't read it. Because if I don't take the right action, somebody tracks me down. I've got a phone. We've got all of these other ways to chat. You know, back in the office before COVID, I didn't read email either. I don't read my work email because, I get 100 emails a day at work that's related to stuff that are reminders. And if they really want something, they seek you out. And then the garbage that you get in email that causes things like malware to come up is just much more frequent than any business email that's worth reading. And then the other thing about email I don't like is like people are requiring you to give an email for everything now. And then that kind of like marks you forever. Because I can't undo that. It's like when somebody asks for your mobile number. I'm like, no, you're not getting my mobile number because I'm going to start getting calls that I don't want. And back here there was a question.
Some groups like Equal Corp are now under US sanctions, so it's not legal to pay ransoms to. So what's your take on making?
Well, I think they pay it anyway.
But what's your take on making ransomware payments legal?
Making ransomware payments illegal?
Yes, you're not legal.
Well, I think that you're going to get the same argument like the gentleman over here on the left talked about Alabama, where you have a hospital or you have the Colonial Pipeline and nobody's got gas. So somebody wants to get paid, they're going to get paid to turn on this service. But what we don't do is ever take it back to the ground and go to the root cause and say, well, where did we go wrong? Because I don't think anybody disagrees. We have mitigations. We know how to prevent most of this malware, ransomware. We're just lax in our operation of business to actually do the diligence of preventing this from happening. Now we're back over here again.
What's your definition of secure?
Off.
Off isn't an option.
Off and burned.
Yeah, I asked the question because if you turn off email, they'll just find all your vectors. If everyone raises the bar and you become more secure, ransomware is going to stop. They're going to look at the economics of it, which at the moment indicate that they could burn zero days, which are expensive to develop. It's probably still profitable. So you can actually apply any kind of control that exists and mitigations that exist, but you can never mitigate against unknown threats, the unknown unknowns. So if you do that, it's just an arms race, isn't it? So by legislating, you wouldn't necessarily stop the arms race and mean that it's unprofitable to do it. You're just changing the battlefield and the goalposts because as the bar raises, it's a cat and mouse game, so they'll respond. So why can you do it?
Okay, and I had time to think again about updating my idea of secure. I act like nothing is secure. Because let's just be real about this. Everything that we use is insecure. It can't be fixed. It is designed broken. Ask Intel. How broken is the Intel processor? But still, we plod on and keep buying it. Spectre and Meltdown taught us that. Inherently, the hardware and software that we use has been through diligent business practice. It's not economical to actually make a device that is secure.
So in that world, where nothing is secure, how do you expect legislating to say ransomware is legal to have any impact on that if you assume breach?
Well, I think I'm looking at it in a more practical way. I'd like to see people who want to find their own independent way of working not have themselves threatened because they found something. I mean, I see this all the time. We're in the business, we're all this. What do you do when you're at the doctor's office and you see something that's totally effed up? Because I'm still not sure about saying the F-bomb. I probably would have dropped the F-bomb. It's been 2 years. I'm not ready, or maybe I already have. Have I said fuck yet?
No, I think that was it.
Was that it? Okay.
You're good now.
Now it's all, but what was the question?
If you move from a position where everyone's back and it's easy to do ransomware, therefore you should legislate. Because you should focus on people who should just do these things and make them do the things to fix it. In a world where everyone does all the things to fix it, where do you go then and how will legislation fix that problem? Like you're saying, ransomware is now how that fix that problem in that world. Because you have this arms race that's
Yeah, well, I got the idea about, this talk and this idea about the decriminalization of the act of ransomware from weed in the United States. So states are decriminalizing marijuana, and they're doing it for the reason so that they can tax it and make money. And the idea of because responsible disclosure is broken. The idea of we're going to be able to go to a vendor and tell them about a vulnerability and give them the appropriate amount of time to address the bug, and then I'll get credit for this vulnerability. I mean, we had the best ideas when we came up with responsible disclosure, and we've completely flummoxed the entire thing. And this is a little bit clear because why is it that when it's a very awkward conversation when you discover something that, for example, this hospital in Alabama, say you're in Alabama and you're in the hospital and you notice that the systems in the hospital aren't being run properly, and you go to the hospital and say, I think that your systems are not properly configured. And then the hospital goes, well, HIPAA. You can't, you just violated the HIPAA. I mean, the threat of the law is what businesses use to keep these. It's easier to threaten somebody with the law than it is to actually fix the problems that are being brought up. And it makes everybody awkward to contact anybody to tell them that their things aren't fixed properly and susceptible to these attacks. I think it would open a dialogue between security researchers and companies and provide a way and incentivize people for fixing things when they see they need to be fixed. I mean, the zero-day market is a good example of how we have matured this model of you find a zero-day, there's a market for that. You can go and talk to legitimate businesses and sell the zero-day, and then they deal with the responsible disclosure. You get paid less, but you get paid all less, and it's been legitimized. And now people make a living finding zero days. Why can't people make a living finding networks that are susceptible to ransomware? But just trying to do that and getting caught would be a crime. What if you accidentally unleash ransomware on somebody when you're discovering it? I mean, we've got, what's this thing? I haven't done a talk in 2 years, so I'm trying to remember this Shodan. Everybody uses Shodan now, and you can find these kind of things all over the place. I watch, InfoSec Twitter. I think Barry's in the back. I've seen him in the last 2 years go from, he's taken all of these classes. You do this stuff, Barry, right? And I watch him on Twitter. He's like, oh, I found this, I found that. And then what happens when you approach a business and you tell them, hey, this is effed up? What kind of response do you get from the business?
Right, so you're hitting smaller companies. We were talking about it last night. Hitting smaller companies that are clearly outsourced it. They don't know what the heck they're talking about. Can't name them. Call them a British UK baker, which you probably know on the high street. They don't have IT. I've got a problem with them. They ask them to sign up on their SAP system as a supplier. I'm not a supplier. I'm just somebody who wants to. I know a threat if they know something you don't. I don't want to be a threat. I want you to know it. I'd quite like to get paid, but I can't ask for money. Then I'm doing extortion. So I'm stuck. They want to sign up on SAP. I can't tell them what the problem is. They don't understand. They're not listening to me. How do we get called? It's really difficult. But your point is, if I was a criminal, I would give a crap. I would just hit them with it and I'd get paid.
Well, I'm telling you right now, you should just get paid. You should hit them with ransomware and get paid.
Yeah.
Is that controversial to say? I mean, the head of the GCHQ said, people are doing this with impunity right now. Hack the planet. It doesn't work. If bug bounty programs worked, we wouldn't have this problem. We've been trying this for, what's it been? 30 years, responsible disclosure now. This is the 20s. We were talking about this in the 90s. And we still haven't managed a way to do responsible disclosure. Because
that's an unfair statement. I think we do have responsible disclosure. These book back programs do work. Otherwise, Hackathon, bookground wouldn't exist. But it isn't the whole solution to the problem. I think you're all generalizing that.
And I think the problem involved was to see the hackers market. Hackers have the right keeping hackers, where it's all them to know the attacks that I agree with 25 years ago or that are different to the attacks that are doing data and so on. It's a really bad thing. And I think that will happen ransomware. There's just evolve ransomware, more aggressive and more smart.
So, how many people have actually found 0 days and reported them to vendors in this room? How many have done 100? I can answer your question. Possibly not while we're being filmed. What happens when you find cool 0 days?
I don't think that's a question. It's more a statement that does work for some of the market and some of the issues that are out there. These companies do pay out for crowd programs. People in this conference who will make big money on that. It doesn't tackle the entire problem. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that someone signs up to a crowd or whatever and then instantly gets all their problems resolved and never gets ransomware again. But it tackles a portion of the problem. But the idea that sort of disclosure doesn't work full stop, I don't think that's true. I think it does in part. It depends on the maturity of the company and their adoption towards responsible disclosure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it partially works. I'll give in your end of the argument. Yes, we do have somewhat of a dysfunctional system around responsible disclosure, but we have no formalism in ransomware. What we have are criminals making money off of people who, for whatever reason, allow this to happen on their networks. And then from their business perspective, it's cheaper to pay the ransomware than it is to actually hire somebody to fix this problem. Well, I was hoping somebody would say that. Thank you very much. I think what this does is it enables people to find a job that they could do on their own and get paid because, I've got a daughter that's got a degree and she can't find a job. It's like we have a vacuum of people with jobs, and the people who are trying to get jobs don't have experience, so there's no entry level in any jobs. I've seen this in Twitter all over about this. It's practically impossible to hire somebody when I work at a big place, and I was on a committee to hire a programmer for 18 months. And you've got either you lose the candidates because you can't take action fast enough, or people just don't apply. And it's a hard problem. And I think that, and you're back here doing this, so did I fill the time?
You've got 5 minutes.
So we're doing great.
I'm trying to run it through my head if you did decriminalize it, and I feel like if I'm now a business and you can send me an email saying, hey, you've got vulnerability and you owe me money because I can ransom you. I feel like every script kiddie in the world is constantly going to be sending me emails, constantly attacking me, and now you actually, because you made it legal, I actually now owe them money. So now I'm in trouble because I owe so much money to all these script kiddies for proving that they can attack me because it's not a legal thing to do it now. I don't see. I feel like I should be under constant attack, as opposed to maybe the one ransomware incident I had a year or something. I don't see.
Well, it's like 0 days. You could say, well, I've already paid on this one. You know, the race to 0 day is that way too. If I find a 0 day and we find the same 0 day, the first person there gets paid, the second person doesn't. And we already get too much mail to read anyway. I already established that fact earlier in the talk. But I think we need to come up with a way to have a better conversation with people about the fact that their networks they shouldn't be connected to the internet. I think that, again, off, burnt. I mean, this thing is broken.
I remember many years ago, I was working for a big company in the communication area, not being named, but they are headquartered in Sweden. And the coordination between crappy laptops, mechanical drives, and mandated security software basically slowed down the boot up process between 5 and 25 minutes, depending on how lucky you were. And I made a very true napkin calculation. I told the manager, with this thing here, we're losing at least 150,000 euros in revenue every year because of lost productivity. And the radio never, ever mentioned this to anybody else outside. So if you cannot fix things internally, I doubt you can tell the hospital, hey, your database is on the internet or whatever it is.
So, I was glad I was first today because I think there are some conversations that we should probably have in the hallway that might be interesting to some people that ask questions. Because I think especially with this idea we had from the back about, I'm going to get a lot of emails about these things. I think we need to find a way to better communicate. You just need to consider that it's always a bad idea to internet connect an electronic device. And you shouldn't just do it. And you should accept the risk that you will lose everything if you go online. And then people just don't think about that. I mean, how many people lose their pictures on their phone because it gets run over by the car or it gets stolen and you don't have any backups of anything in your phone? People just don't do the due diligence of things because there's this idea that these things are perfect. And, and they're not. I could just dump this down right now. What would I lose if I just dropped my laptop on the ground? And I think it was a good conversation. My only aim in the talk was to have a conversation with a few people, and I think that I did that. So thank you very much, because I'd have been finished like 20 minutes ago if they hadn't started yelling at me. So I was trying to provoke some thought, and thank you for having me. It's been great to get back out and, have a great day. I'll be around. Hit me in the hallway. You'll get a much better answer. Thank you.